I'm joined now by Wendy Grace, a broadcaster with Spirit Radio, who favours retaining the Eighth Amendment, and by Linda Kavanagh of the Abortion Rights Campaign, who favours repealing it. Wendy Grace, yesterday we saw a cross-party committee of politicians advocating a very liberal position on abortion. 5 years ago, 10 years ago, that would have been unthinkable. Doesn't it show that the ground has shifted very significantly?
I think actually what the members voted for is very far apart from what the Irish people want in general.
But even the fact that politicians were prepared to vote that way in public suggests a change, doesn't it?
I think it suggests that they perhaps didn't hear a broad swathe of evidence. When you look at the actual evidence that the committee heard, it was something like 25 people presented who would have had a pro-repeal perspective, and only 5 people presented that would have had a pro-life perspective. And I actually interviewed one of the women who was presenting on the pro-life side, who had a personal story, who'd been given a poor prenatal diagnosis, and the pressure she was put under to have an abortion was extreme. Now, she told me, and it was actually quite harrowing, to be honest with you, that she felt from the get-go when she went in to present to the committee, they were not interested in hearing what she had to say. In other words, they already had their minds made up. And we know that because 3 weeks in, before hearing all the evidence, they already conducted a vote to say, whatever happens, we're going to have some sort of change to this amendment. So it kind of felt like a bit of a pointless exercise in that sense. OK,
you may have your arguments with the way the committee was conducted. I'm sure the members of the committee would have a different view of it. But the very fact that politicians from the main parties, Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael, some politicians from those parties are prepared to support abortion in quite a wide range of circumstances is a sea change, isn't it?
I think that they need to look to what the Irish people actually want in this country. And opinion poll after opinion poll shows that what they certainly don't want is what they voted for, which is unlimited abortion up to 12 weeks. What are we talking about here? We're talking about a situation where at 12 weeks that baby can curl their toes, open and close their fingers. They're fully formed, they just have to grow. You know, my 10-week scan for my first baby, the doctor said to me, that's a very active baby. But you could see him jumping around, and he hasn't changed since, I can tell you. He's 9 months now. And here's the thing. Those Oireachtas members might have voted very differently, David, if they gave even 1 hour to listening to women, for example, who thought about abortion and continued with their pregnancies, or if they gave 1 hour to listening to women who regretted their abortions, but they didn't. They didn't hear any of these stories. They didn't devote any time, in fact, to saying, why is the Eighth Amendment a positive thing in this country?
OK, Linda Kavanagh, I presume you're happy enough with the proposals of the committee as far as they go?
Yeah, cautiously optimistic, we'd have to say. Like, we can see that there was a really evolving perspective throughout the Joint Oireachtas Committee. And we have to commend the politicians for going in there with an open heart and an open mind and listening to the experts. And it's something that we, as the pro-choice community, already know, that when people listen to experts, listen to lived experiences, they move towards a more pro-choice position.
But is there a danger that the recommendations are so liberal or so radical as some it'll scare off middle ground voters that a referendum on that basis wouldn't be passed?
I don't see that. I think that what came out of the Joint Oireachtas Committee was quite a nuanced middle ground perspective. They voted for a 12-week unlimited access because or no restrictions to reason. Sorry, that's the language. Because they understand the complexities of people's lives and the nuances, and they didn't want people to be left behind by.
Yeah, but opinion poll after opinion poll suggests that the Irish people, or a majority of the Irish people, are prepared to see abortion in certain circumstances, rape, incest, a life-threatening condition and so on, but not to have perhaps a similar situation to the UK. So is there a danger, from your point of view, that a referendum on that basis would not be passed?
Well, I think the education piece, which happened in the Joint Oireachtas Committee and happened in the Citizens' Assembly as well, was while there is an overwhelming support for people who have become pregnant because of rape, that the reality of how you would regulate that is really, really difficult. So that's why they went for the 12 weeks without restrictions to reason. So they understood the complexities. They understood that they didn't want to re-traumatise already traumatised people. And that's the education piece that we as a pro-choice community have to get across.
OK, but, you know, as you term it, education, whether it's the Citizens' Assembly or the Oireachtas Committee is one thing, but trying to get that message across in the white heat of a referendum campaign might be something else entirely.
Yes, it might be, and that's the challenge that we face. But we're up for it, and we know that Irish people are very aware of the reality of abortion, and they're aware that thousands of women travel, and they want to see equality and care at home. So that's why we hope that they will vote for repeal of the Eighth Amendment.
Okay, Wendy, Grace, how is the argument to be made that this amendment, which has caused controversy, has led to hard cases, I think everybody would accept that, how is the case to be made to retain it?
I think the case to be made to retain it is to look at the lives that have been saved because of this amendment. What other law can we point to in our constitution that has actually saved lives? And we need to look to the experience of other countries, because I feel in the intervening years where other countries like the United Kingdom have introduced abortion, we need to learn from that. We have to ask ourselves, do we want a situation where we have, like in the UK, 1 in 5 pregnancies ending in abortion, where we have 90% of babies with Down syndrome aborted, and that can happen up until birth? Abortion up until birth for things like cleft palate, spinal bifida.
That was specifically not accepted by the committee.
Well,
yesterday.
I mean, the committee also voted to allow abortion on the grounds of health, so that could be all-encompassing. So I believe that would and could happen. And if the amendment is repealed entirely, then after that, any government can amend legislation to include that. So we have an opportunity now to say, what have we learned from other countries and the mistakes that they have made? And for people of my generation, the things that we have learned from ultrasound technology and the development of the baby, for example, I feel it's women and people of my age responsibility to use this medical and scientific knowledge to say, what can we do to better support women, so that no woman ever has to choose between her child and her career, or her child and her college course. What I want is authentic choice for women.
Linda Kavanagh, we heard Wendy there talking about the UK situation, 1 in 5 births ends in abortion, or 1 in 5 pregnancies ends in abortion, and so on. If that argument is made, and the comparison with the UK situation is made, it could make a referendum very difficult to win for you.
Well, in a way, we already have UK-style abortion because we access our abortion in the UK. So that...
I don't want to interrupt, but I have to, because...
Well, you just did. Well, I will give you a chance to get back in. I will give you a chance to get back in, but I'd like Linda to be allowed to finish her point.
But so we do have that access. But I just don't know if that's like very helpful to say, oh, the UK should use them as a kind of model against. Women need to be able to access healthcare here. The reality is people are having abortions. They are travelling 10 a day. There are 5 women a day accessing safe but illegal abortion pills. That's reality. That's, you know, and so we just want those people to be able to get their healthcare at home, locally, accessibly.
Okay, Wendy, Grace, it's happening anyway.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. You have to look at the rates in Ireland. In the UK, the abortion rates are 4 times higher than we have in Ireland. So here's the reality. Here's the question that we have to ask. We know that the law is an educator, and when the law changes, so does culture. And we saw that in the UK when they introduced abortion. Within 5 years, the rate increasing by 500%. So we have to ask the question, do we want to unite together and say, how can we make sure that less women feel that they have, as I've heard so many times, no other choice? They say, I feel I have no choice because we're not giving them the necessary supports. How do we create a culture and society that lessens the abortion figures, not introduces a law that will make them greater?
Okay, one very brief last word to you, Linda. I mean, how do you think this is going to go?
I think we're going to repeal the 8th Amendment. I think the Irish people recognise the need and want for abortion and to have care at home.
Okay, Linda and Wendy, thank you both very much for joining us. We will be discussing this topic many times before the referendum next year.